On this episode of DC On Screen, we are talking about the final episode of Flash Season 5, and really, we're going to be talking about Flash Season 5 right after this.
Are you struggling to conceive? You have options, and at Piedmont Reproductive Endocrinology Group, we'll make sure you have the guidance and support you need. PREG is known for individualized fertility care that's unique to every patient. We take the time to provide a reassuring and empowering experience because we believe that you deserve nothing less. Let us help you on your journey to parenthood. Visit us at pregonline.com to learn more. Get the guidance and support you need at Piedmont Reproductive Endocrinology Group.
You think of Earth as a singular planet. In fact, it is anything but. For this is a story not of a universe,
but a multiverse.
Where universes and planets, such as Earth, were replicated and mirrored across a vibrating, infinite plane. Some barely different from the next.
Others drastically so.
This is DC On Screen. Every week, Dave and Jason talk about the multiverse of DC properties on film and television. But be warned, if it's been officially released, you can expect they'll spoil it.
Welcome in to DC On Screen. I am your host, David C. Robertson. This, my co-host, Jason Goss.
Hello.
All right, so we've seen The Flash Season 5. I don't know how to say this. Do you feel like you care less now?
About what?
The Flash.
No.
Because, back in the day, it's like season 2 or whatever, like I was just all about like season 1 and 2 I felt like had a certain momentum where I was just like, what the hell is going on? Oh man, look at Wells, or oh man, who's the guy in the Iron Mask? And somewhere, who is Zoom? They did a really good job with that kind of stuff. And the last couple of years has just been sort of in those terms.
Well, in the sense that it was just champing at the bit for the next season. Yes and no. On the one hand, they've got plenty set up for the next season. On the other hand, they don't have this giant mystery to tide me over.
Mm-hmm.
But am I less excited? Probably not. I mean, it was still a good season. I enjoyed it.
It was, I think it was one of my least favorite seasons, honestly.
Just couldn't get involved in it? Just couldn't get involved in it, or?
At the onset, I liked Cicada enough, but as it got further in, he just kept doing more and more of the Christian Bale Batman voice.
Cicada was my least favorite version. And the weird part is the guy who played him, what is his name?
Chris Klein, I think.
Klein, there we go. Klein, when he's playing the dad, I loved him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he did a great job. Yeah. He was charming, effective. I believed everything he said. When he's playing Cicada, they had him do this way over the top, exaggerated, what the hell are we up to kind of thing. It was like distractingly awful.
And he's like doing this thing where he like cranes his neck down and then like slowly keeps like looking up to the side with his eyes rolling in the back of his head. I'm like, I just hated it.
Yeah, I didn't like that take at all. Like, I was really happy when they kind of killed him mid-season.
Yeah, but then they kept bringing him back, like talking to her
in the Cicada voice. Yeah, and then they did the same thing with her though. Where like if you're on this show and you're supposed to be Cicada, and when you're acting like Cicada, like when you're acting like a bad guy, apparently if you're Cicada on this show, you're supposed to overact. That part annoyed the crap out of me because I saw glimpses of her. They didn't really give her much to do except do that role, but I saw glimpses of her where I thought, oh, she could probably do a better job. And then I know he can do a better job. We saw him in this. If I'd never seen him in anything else, I saw him in this show do a better job.
Yeah,
and they just made him do that instead. I don't understand why.
I don't either, and it bothered me throughout.
Yeah, throughout the season, that was a detractor for me for sure. But the actual idea of Cicada throughout the season was pretty solid. I mean, that was a good big bad for the season. Somebody who can walk into any situation and no matter what you're capable of, fucking gone.
Yeah.
That's a cool power. I'm glad they played with it.
The concept of Cicada was cool. I don't think I ever fully bought into the idea of meta tech. I never wrapped my head around that, and I thought it was kind of stupid every time they mentioned it.
What do you mean metatech?
Like, that was the big thing of the season, was they were like, so many of the criminals of the freaks of the week or whatever you want to call it had metatech. where it was like
just
when Barry and Nora
replacing meta powers?
when Barry and Nora punched that satellite somehow.
Okay. No, sorry.
Remember, like
I got
all
it.
the car could do different things and
Yeah.
different. Yeah, it was just stupid to me. I didn't like it. I know it's stupid to like. I know it is inherently stupid to pick something like that out of a comic book show and be like, I didn't like that portion of the unbelievable thing.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, when Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did it, and it was a bunch of tech left over from the New York incident, I loved it. I think it's a viable storyline.
It might come down to just how they describe it or how they portray it.
I think it came down for you as too much of a Monster of the Week thing, because you hate that.
I do hate that.
I think that was like that for Monster of the Week for you and for me. I'm not just saying you. I have a little bit more forgiveness for it week to week than you do. If it's an enjoyable enough concept for a week, I'll just kind of write it off and be like, well, that's cool, that worked, and move on. I think you resent the story not moving on.
I do, but I also resent there being 22 episodes instead of like 10.
Yeah, but then in that case, what you really want is for there to be no metatech, and you just want the story to move on.
Right. Like, I don't mind. I don't want there to be metatech necessarily the way that they portrayed it on The Flash, because I thought it was dumb, as I've said, I just wasn't satisfied with whatever their explanation of it was at the time.
I was okay with it as an inevitable conclusion. I mean, there's no way this kind of incident happens, especially when you have Cicada, whose metatech is a dagger. Mm-hmm. There's no way there's not more complicated metatech out there. It makes sense that it exists in this universe and they played with it this season.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, that's just a quibble I have with the premise. And I wasn't crazy about the villain. Like, I liked the concept of the villain for the most part, but I didn't like the way they played him.
I didn't either. I'm with you on that one.
All right, so of course Cicada isn't the big villain. Of course, Reverse Flash is the big villain of the season, and I assumed, like, I was really hoping in a way that this was Thawne is at the end of his life. And he's he's finally found some kind of...
You wanted a redemption arc.
I wanted a little bit of redemption arc, but I didn't think it was going to happen because he still looked like Wells.
Yeah.
So I assumed he was doing something. There was, and he did. I think he was being genuine when he tells Barry that he looked at Nora like a daughter.
I do. Like, that part I really enjoyed, that Barry and his relationship was advanced a little bit by Little Runner. I think that part of his advancement on a psychological level is true and not a play and not a ploy. I think he actually had feelings for Nora.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I like that. I really like that.
Tom Cavanaugh has this amazing ability to make me root for him in no matter what the situation is.
Dude. I have heard him do Dr. Pepper commercials, and I wanted to drink that drink.
Right. And, I like the Tom Cavanaugh version of Eobard Thawne so much more than the other version. The guy that we saw bite it in Legends a few last season or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the difference is necessarily. I can't really put my finger on the differences in characterization, but I do not feel like that is the same character in a lot of ways. Like there's some sort of dissonance there for me. I can't quite connect them. I do understand they're the same guy, but I just like Tom Cavanaugh so much more.
I mean, they're the same guy, but it's also a different guy in that timeline. Mm-hmm. Like, there's Dirty Blonde, I'll call him, Eobard Thawne, in the timeline before he takes over the Harrison Wells body. It's weird, man. It's something that would take a lot of time to delve into. Like, all right, where does that actor fit into the timeline, and where does Cavanaugh fit into the timeline?
Right.
It's odd, but what I do know is I agree. I definitely like Cavanaugh's version.
But yeah,
at all turns.
Since we have seen him post Cavanaugh Thawne, I knew that his time wasn't really up. So there's that. Mm-hmm. And I assumed that, despite my desire for his redemptive arc, that he was going to betray Nora, or at the very least utilize her for some nefarious means, which of course he did. And I couldn't have been more happy when he tortured that guard before killing him.
Oh yeah, that worked for me. I was also really happy it was Dibney that kind of actually sorted that out.
Yes.
That was cool.
Now,
Like even
that's
Sherlock or whatever however he wants to pronounce it, getting to say kind of as he leaves, you've got a real detective on your hands.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to leave it to Dibney, which is a character that I've gotten really attached to over the last couple of years.
Now, Sherlock, however you say it, didn't care for. I like Tom Cavanaugh. I love Tom Cavanaugh. Don't get me wrong. I thought his is the woman that he marries in every timeline being named Adler was stupid. I
like that.
I thought it was dumb.
No,
I just really did.
It should be Adler at every turn.
Well, yeah, but I mean, are we saying that he's an alternate version of Sherlock Holmes, or are we saying that he's just that the names are just coincidence? Or I mean, I guess it's the multiverse, so everything is 100% probable.
No, I would say that it's entirely different. In my version of it, the names Sherlock or whatever and Renee Adler are names that are tied together at all times. And when someone writes about it fictionally later and it becomes a major story, they just use those names. Like, to me, it's just fiction. There are books about Sherlock and Adler, and then there's the actual persons.
Okay.
Like, to me, it's not that they were actually Sherlock and Renee Adler. They were just...
Or, I mean, she wasn't Irene Adler, but she
Irene
was
Adler,
Renee.
sorry.
Yeah.
To me, it's just a version of the truth, and somebody fictionalizes it later and makes it part of our fictional history. But I'm okay with it being that there was an actual version in several multiverses where they meet. And in every version, somebody thinks I should fictionalize that and write it down.
I don't know. I just thought, I mean, Kavanaugh was great. I don't think I'm saying that I didn't think the character should have been there. I didn't like the names. I thought it was kind of silly.
That was a little silly. No, I agree with you there.
Although I even enjoyed the bit where he kept mispronouncing names and people kept correcting him, and then the only name that he knew how to pronounce was his own name.
Yeah, that was a running bit that we've even done just now, where every time he pronounced Sherlock, or however you want to say it, he would just say it again, and sometimes it was like the same damn thing. Mm-hmm. But it's also like a thing that I've enjoyed in his... Like, I love the Nero Wolfe novels. And there's a quote from Nero Wolfe in one of the novels where he says the American tongue is not equipped to use French effectively. It's just, we are not by our nature. If you were born here and use American language, we cannot use French correctly. And having listened to French on several occasions, I kind of agree. That shit's weird. You're doing some stuff with your nose that's just, it's really hard to mimic. It was a cool conceit. I enjoyed it for the season.
Yeah. How did you feel about Nora overall? Just
I like the arc. I liked the arc. I mean, the only thing that bothered me about the arc in general was how quickly Barry turned on her in the last few episodes. I mean, Barry's supposed to be the heart of this show in a lot of ways, and when he left her in the past, I kind of thought, dude, it's not congruent with what I normally think of when I think of the Flash. Like in this series, normally he's the guy that's holding out hope. I did love that Iris calls him out on that. Mm-hmm. And I like that he came around, but it was one of those things that felt like a kind of a false narrative. It shouldn't have been there to begin with. He should have had her back a little bit.
I feel like it was there for padding.
A little bit.
I mean, I guess in a certain sense, like every season, Barry really has to put up with some sort of big betrayal from somebody. And I kind of like the idea that it may have broken him a little. Like they should have gone big with it or just not done it at all. And I don't feel like they went big enough with it for them to have justified them doing it.
Well, in that sense, you may have a point. They were very concise about it. He is very angry. He has a reaction, and in terms of the episodes, less than a week later, he completely 180s and goes into what we consider the normal Barry mode of I know the people I trust and love the people I trust, and I trust them outright, implicitly. And he gets back into that very quickly as the story progresses. But, yeah, I mean, he has a moment, and he deals with it very quickly. Mm-hmm. All right, how should I put this? I would rather them have tied that up over the time they did than over half a season, if that was the alternative.
I can see that. I think I would have preferred that they not done it at all.
I think I would have too.
But I will say this about Nora. I don't know, and this is something me and my wife were talking about. My wife was like, "How old is Nora supposed to be?" And I said, "No, she's in her 30s. She's a CSI they keep saying it was 30 years in the future, but she does not act like she's 30 years old. She acts like she is 16 with her relationship with Iris, with her relationship with Barry, with her actions. She acts like she is a teenager. And that is a real detriment for the character, in my opinion. Like, she's borderline infuriating at times.
Yeah, I could see that. And they
Because
do play
she
it
ain't
out.
grown.
Like, yeah, I wish they had said she was 20 years old, because that would have been doable. I mean, when you're 20, you're just starting to become an adult and see your parents as people. And through the course of this series, they're trying to do that. But same time, let me give it this conceit and see if that plays for you at all.
Mm-hmm.
The way they introduced her was her coming back, and she was just some girl we saw in like a couple of flashback scenes in a crossover.
Yeah.
And she just clearly wanted to meet these people. So imagine her in a scenario where maybe she is... They did establish the fact that she's really good at her job as a CSI.
Right.
Maybe this is a situation where she did have a normal life and we just didn't get to see it, and she did grow and age. And then her version of therapy, like the mid-30s, maybe I needed to go see a therapist instinct, was she has the ability to actually go back and see people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not quite Arrested Development, but it's kind of like a belated development, where maybe she did have a whole life, and maybe if you'd caught her a year before this whole thing, maybe she looked like an adult. Maybe she looked like Barry in his real life, where he's just able to do his, CSI tasks super fast and all that. But in her version, maybe she just has this moment where she really breaks down and has like an emotional crisis in her 30s, where she's like, I've really got to work this shit out, or I'm not going to be able to grow. Mm-hmm. And in her version, she can go back and actually see her damn parents. And then if that's the case, we would see this emotionally underdeveloped person, because that's what they're showing us right now. In my version, in my conceit, maybe we're seeing the worst version of her as far as emotionally development.
Maybe.
But yeah, maybe she just hasn't moved on much since she's 20. I don't know. It's possible.
I guess I still I don't feel like they were getting that deep with it. I really just don't.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely didn't get that deep with it. I would just say that's a possible explanation.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, that's a nice little headcanon you got there.
Yeah, right?
I'll take it. Let's see, what else we got here? How you feeling about Cisco's thing this season? With Cisco and Caitlin had an interesting arc where she's coming to terms and accepting Killer Frost, and he's doing the exact opposite with Vibe.
Yeah, I would have sided with Caitlin instead of Cisco on this one. I mean, accepting yourself on every level is what they did with her, and on the other hand, they had Cisco kind of, in a way, want to be proud of himself and establish himself as Cisco. But the only thing that didn't take on that, and I understand that behind the scenes he wanted to leave the show because he has other stuff he wants to do. Apparently I've heard his music. It's good music, but he wants to go back and do his other pursuits. And, I don't begrudge him that. But on the show, he established himself as a badass way before he was ever a superpowered badass.
Yeah, that's the only thing that didn't track for me, was that, like, this dude knows how to do so much shit. Like, he can create so much stuff, and he's such a fan of, like, the superhero genre and of geek properties. Like, I just don't necessarily really believe that he would want to get rid of his powers, especially like I'm all for creating a cure for those who don't want to be a metahuman, for whatever reason, if their powers are disruptive to their lives or hurt people and they can't control it, or if it makes them look grotesque or something, like Nightcrawler or something. But just it feels like Cisco made a selfish decision and a short-sighted decision, because I don't think there's anything about the Vibe powers that I'm looking at that make me think like you can live a normal life and just like occasionally touch something and get a vibe. Like, that's okay. Like, it's okay to have a normal life and just like be able to like transport yourself somewhere else. Like, my God, you never have to go through traffic again.
Yeah, no,
What are you doing?
He could totally have just had his normal life. They tried to pin it psychologically on the idea that he wants to be the best version of himself without any kind of addendums, without any asterisks, and that's great. But within the course of the show, it didn't really, like you said, it didn't really track.
Yeah, it
he
doesn't
was
track with
already
who
a
he
badass,
is. And well established before he ever got his powers.
right?
So yeah, that didn't play for me, and I assume he will get his powers back at some point, somehow. Maybe not.
I don't
Maybe
even
he'll
assume
just leave
that.
the
I'm
show.
not sure he's actually going to be in the show much going forward. I mean, we know he wants to leave. I don't know what the contract is on that, but I'm not sure how much of him we're going to see.
Yeah.
So, best line, I think, of the finale?
Mm-hmm.
Eobard Thawne, see you at our next crisis.
Yep. That was
pretty great.
How did you feel about Nora's sacrifice? Or her death? Not really even her. I mean, it was kind of a sacrifice.
It was a sacrifice, and it was good. It was a great end to her story. Like, as far as the writing is concerned, I really loved it. I think it was on me that it didn't, I got a little choked up, but honestly, the average Flash finale will kind of make me cry to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
This one didn't quite, but I don't think it was the fault of her story or definitely her acting. I don't know who, I don't know her name. I knew it early before, like, preseason, but I've forgotten it now.
Yeah.
I don't think it was her fault, and I don't think it was the story's fault. I honestly think I'm just kind of too tired to have that emotional reaction right now.
I don't think I'm too tired. I think it ran hollow for me.
I mean, it was hard. And also, I was a little bit distracted by how they did the graphics on it, because it looks so damn similar to the Thanos snap shit.
Oh, it just, to me, it looked exactly like when Thawne was erased from reality after they killed, after Eddie killed himself in season 1.
After Eddie killed himself, yeah.
That's what that was the effect. Like,
Yeah, it should have. And that didn't even occur to me. So the back and forth on that, it was distracting. The back and forth on the CGI and the actual moment was, I don't know, it didn't. Now, like, Barry, what I do remember really affecting me was, like, Barry literally trying to grab her and his grip getting tighter and tighter until he was basically hugging himself. Like, that actually was pretty effective. That hurt a little bit to watch. But no, I didn't have a breakdown like I've sobbed at the end of certain seasons of Flash, but
right. I think if there was anything that kind of got me was like, and I didn't get misty or choked up or anything, but I really liked when Barry and Iris said that more than sadness, they feel pride.
Oh yeah.
That was a nice turn.
That was good.
I'm glad to see that Joe is going to be the captain next year, but also kind of feel like this is his chance to sit behind a desk and not do much.
Which, yeah, physically maybe the thing to do for him.
Right.
I was also happy to hear that Singh isn't an idiot, that he refers to Barry as the Flash. Just, come on, man.
Yeah, that was great.
That was cool.
That was great. And if I'm permitted here, I'll also say it was a bit tone deaf, given that it was juxtaposed so closely with Nora. Because he's like, blah, 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 Flash, and Barry's over there smiling, and I'm like, why are you smiling? Your daughter just got erased from existence. And then, like, right away, he's back with Iris, and they're talking about that.
That really did, like, the juxtaposition occurred to me, but the only thing that stopped me from really being put off by it was that is a version of the future that he had access to that he should never have had access to.
Mm-hmm.
So him in the present, he still has his life in front of him. And if I'm him, I'm thinking, you know, if we're going to grow and adapt here, we still have plenty of time to actually have a child. And I have all that time with her now that I didn't have before because this future version came and gave that to me.
Would it be crazy if they did a thing where Iris gets pregnant and it's the Tornado Twins? It's not even her.
Yeah. I could see that. Oh,
I would love to see the Tornado Twins.
This is the last thing I really had. but I just remembered it. Did you love the shot? Was I the only one that loved the shot of the ring coming out for Eobard and then going back in?
I don't even think I noticed that.
Oh, dude, he releases the costume for it from his ring, and you think it's going to be this great moment for him where he, I don't know, reclaims his throne in a way, but then it just gets shot back immediately because they've got a plan in the past where Barry and Alan, basically because of Dimney and Barry and Nora's time abilities, they've pretty much come back to thwart him. But it was a cool shot because essentially the ring explodes, the costume explodes, and it gets almost unraveled, and then it just kind of goes back a little bit. It was a cool moment.
Now I remember him like running and then like
Snapping everybody's heads.
yeah, that was badass. I loved that.
Oh yeah.
But no,
Dude's
I
deadly.
remembered him like running, and then like they show up in the Flash family shows up in the time ship and just like hits him, just like he just like runs
the
into that
actual
time ship.
assault of Reverse Flash at the end of this episode was really, really fun to watch. Everything from like giant rubbery, elongated man fists to all the Flash capabilities. Like the actual beatdown of Thawne was pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, they did a good job. Gosh, they did a really good job with the effects.
It's okay, buddy. Stumble over some words with me.
I can't help it. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. Real wrong in my brain.
Been there. I understand.
So anyway, yep.
That's all I got
Let's
there, buddy.
see. That's all you got?
Yep. Arrow?
Well, okay. Well, real quick, what do you how did you feel about the stinger for this Flash, where the time changes from 2024 to 2019?
Oh, yeah. I did like that part because that's been bothering me for a while now.
Yeah.
I mean, that not only did it work for me, I love the fact that they did that in the Flash and kind of fixed that error in the DCW CW verse. Real
down part for me for this season. I just didn't. While I always loved Danielle Panabaker, but I loved her little arc as Killer Frost. But I just don't give a damn about her parents at all. Like her dad, I just don't care about him. I just don't.
Yeah, it worked for me. It was just an
His
episode.
little Frost family. It wasn't just an episode. He came back a couple times this season.
I just remember the one episode.
I mean, there was the first one where she finds him.
Oh, yeah.
And then there was the later thing where he comes back as Icicle or whatever
Right,
they were calling him. And
yeah.
Anyway, yep, that's it. I feel like it was a pretty uneven season for me personally, but still an enjoyable show. I still look forward to The Flash every week, or binging it as often as I can. Because Lord knows there'd be a lot of shows.
Yeah.
And we're gonna get to one more. We're gonna talk about the Arrow finale in the next episode. So until then, keep some DC on your screen.
Our opening narration was from Dan Jurgens' The History of the DC Universe, Part 3 of 10, as featured in DC 52, Week 4. It was performed by me, David C. Robertson. Intro music by Jason Goss and Michael Shackelford. Michael's band, Future Elevators, could be found on Spotify or future-elevators.com. Our introduction was performed by Effie Oppelders of the fantastic podcast Stealing the Remote, which lives on SoundCloud. It can also be found on iTunes and Stitcher. We are proudly in partnership with TV Time, the TV show calendar and social media site that lets you keep track of what you're watching, what your friends are watching, and where you all left off. DC On Screen is a Maladjusted production. Visit maladjusted.tv for more from me and Jason, including sketch comedy, an improvised web series, vlogs, parodies, and more.